The night began like any other Sunday dinner at the Lawson house in Omaha. Camilla Lawson, 34 years old, an environmental engineer known for her discipline and calm spirit, sat at the family table surrounded by the people she had spent years supporting. Her parents and her older brother, Malik, with his wife Sierra. The roast sat untouched in the middle of the table, the air thick with tension. When her father, Richard Lawson, finally spoke, his tone was cold and final. "You can take the guest room," he said flatly, "or move out." His words dropped like stones into the silence. Camilla blinked, unsure she'd heard correctly. Malik leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Better if you're gone by tomorrow," he added. His voice soaked in satisfaction. Camilla's fork slipped from her hand and clattered against the plate. For a moment no one moved. She stared at her father in disbelief. "I've been paying most of the bills here. Utilities, repairs, that new refrigerator in the kitchen," she said, her voice trembling. "You're seriously asking me to leave?" Richard didn't flinch. "It's decided," he said simply. "Malik and Sierra need space." Sierra crossed her legs, smiling faintly, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Camilla turned to her mother, hoping for support, but Evelyn kept her eyes fixed on her plate. The betrayal hit her like a blow. Rage flared through her chest. She stood abruptly, grabbed her keys and said, "Fine. I'm gone." The scrape of her chair echoed like a goodbye. That night, Camilla packed everything that belonged to her. Her television, her couch, even the coffee maker, and walked out of the house she had once called home. She drove through the empty streets of Omaha, tears blurring her vision, replaying every sacrifice she'd made for that family. For years, she had poured her income into that house, believing love was repayment enough. Now, it was clear she had only been a convenience. "You're on your own," she whispered to herself as she turned onto the highway. The glow of the streetlights streaked across her windshield like fading promises. A week later, her phone rang. It was Evelyn. Camilla hesitated before answering. "Mom," she said. The line crackled with noise, voices shouting, panic in the background. Malik's voice cut through, frantic. "She's lying, Mom. Tell me she's lying." Then Evelyn's breathless whisper. "Camilla, something's happened." The chaos spilled through the speaker just as Camilla's life was beginning to find balance again. She sat on the edge of her small apartment bed, heart pounding, realizing that whatever had gone wrong back home was about to drag her back into the storm she thought she'd escaped. 2 years earlier, Camilla had moved back home to help her parents after her grandmother passed away. The bills had been piling up, mortgage, utilities, repairs, and Richard's pension barely stretched far enough. As an environmental engineer, Camilla earned a steady income, so she took it upon herself to handle the costs. "I'll cover the new windows," she had said once, sliding a receipt across the table. Her father nodded distractedly, already asking Malik about another one of his business ideas. Malik, the golden child, had a talent for failure disguised as ambition. He'd burned through money on a food truck, a crypto app, and even an online store that lasted 3 months. Every time Malik's ventures collapsed, Richard would pat him on the back and say, "You just haven't found your lane yet, son." Meanwhile, Camilla's efforts went unnoticed. Once she overheard her mother whisper, "She's just here to help, Richard. Malik's the one with big dreams." The words sliced deep. Camilla wasn't helping, she was holding them all up. But no one seemed to care. When Malik introduced Sierra, things only got worse. Sierra was charming, stylish, and dangerously confident, the kind of woman who could make you feel small with a single glance. Richard and Evelyn adored her instantly. The first night Sierra came for dinner, she wore a sleek red dress and carried herself like someone who already belonged. She laughed at Richard's jokes, complimented Evelyn's cooking, and called Malik babe every other sentence. "She's a real estate agent," Malik announced proudly, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Richard's eyes lit up. "Smart and driven, just like you, son." Camilla stayed quiet, studying Sierra's expensive watch and designer heels. Something about her didn't add up. Real estate wasn't paying that kind of money in Omaha. Not for someone barely 30. Sierra's lifestyle was loud. She arrived in a new SUV, dropped designer shopping bags on the kitchen counter, and bragged about her clients in vague, glamorous terms. When Camilla asked questions about her work, Sierra's smile tightened. "You wouldn't understand, sweetheart," she said once. "It's all about connections." Malik ate it up, grinning like a man who'd hit the jackpot. Richard would chuckle, saying, "That's what success looks like, Camilla. Maybe take notes." Camilla bit her tongue, the words sour in her mouth. The more she watched Sierra, the more the math refused to add up. Late one evening, Camilla pulled her mother aside. "Mom, don't you think Sierra's spending a little excessively?" she asked gently. Evelyn shrugged, rinsing dishes in the sink. "She's successful. Don't be so skeptical, dear." It wasn't just the money that bothered Camilla. It was the way Sierra controlled every conversation. She could steer a dinner table like a boardroom, making Richard beam with pride and Malik feel like a king. Whenever Camilla tried to mention her own contributions, like the property taxes she'd just paid, Richard would interrupt. "Let Sierra finish," he'd say. "She's got something exciting going." After that, Camilla stopped talking at dinners altogether. Her words didn't matter in that house anymore. Once, she caught Sierra looking at her across the table, a faint smirk curling her lips, like she knew she'd already won. Malik started borrowing Camilla's car without asking, claiming he needed it for business meetings. Richard began asking her to help out a bit more around the house, even though she was already covering most of the bills. Evelyn, as always, stayed quiet. Camilla lay awake at night in her childhood room, wondering how long she could keep pretending this was still home. The resentment grew quietly, like a splinter under Camilla's skin. Every weekend, she fixed pipes, patched walls, and handled late utility bills while Malik and Sierra posted photos of brunches and spa days online. "We're building our brand," Sierra would say whenever Camilla questioned them. "You wouldn't get it." Camilla began to feel like a stranger in her own house, a tenant funding someone else's dream. At work, her co-workers talked about vacations and new apartments, while she saved every extra dollar to keep the family home standing. "You're too loyal for your own good," her colleague Nia once told her. Camilla had laughed it off, but deep down she knew it was true. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a quiet Sunday evening, the smell of pot roast filling the kitchen. Camilla expected another dull meal. Small talk, Malik's boasting, Sierra's subtle digs, but nothing prepared her for what happened next. The front door opened, and Malik strode in, dragging 2 large suitcases. Sierra followed, her heels clicking across the floor. "We're moving in," Malik announced proudly. "The lease on our condo expired." Camilla froze. "What do you mean moving in?" she asked. Richard didn't even look up from his plate. "You can take the guest room or move out," he said, as if he'd rehearsed it. For a long moment, the only sound was the ticking clock. Camilla's voice trembled. "You're giving my room to them? After everything I've done for this house?" Sierra folded her arms, her tone smooth. "We'll make good use of the space." "You've had your turn." Richard sighed. "It's time for change, Camilla. They're starting a family." Malik leaned back, smug. "Come on, sis. You don't need to make this harder than it is." Something inside her snapped. "Harder?" she repeated, standing up. "I've been paying for this roof, these lights, this food. You've done nothing but take." Her father's expression hardened. "Enough. It's decided." Sierra smirked, resting her manicured hand on Malik's arm. "Maybe it's time you learn to live on your own," she said softly. The words sliced through Camilla's chest like ice. Her mother kept her eyes on the tablecloth, pretending to adjust a napkin. No one defended her. No one even looked at her. Finally, Camilla pushed her chair back, the scrape echoing across the dining room. "Fine," she said, her voice low but steady. "If I'm not wanted here, I'll leave." She went upstairs, packed what was hers, and loaded her car. Malik watched from the doorway, arms crossed, grinning. "You're really taking the couch," he laughed. "Why not? I paid for it," she shot back. That night, Camilla drove into the city with no plan, only determination. The house faded in her rearview mirror, a symbol of years she could never get back. She found a small one-bedroom apartment downtown, just big enough for her salvaged furniture. When her friend Nia stopped by to help unpack, she brought 2 bottles of wine and a flyer for a yoga class. "You need to breathe again," Nia said with a grin. "It's not just exercise, it's therapy." Camilla smiled faintly. "We'll see." That night, for the first time in years, she slept without worrying about who needed what. The quiet was strange, but it felt like freedom. Days turned into weeks. Work filled her schedule. Early site inspections, late reports, long commutes, but the loneliness crept in at night. Sometimes she'd scroll through social media and see Malik and Sierra smiling in family photos at the house she'd maintained. "They've taken everything," she murmured one evening, closing her laptop. But she refused to let bitterness control her. Slowly she rebuilt. Yoga became her escape, Nia her anchor, and her apartment her sanctuary. Still, something about Sierra kept gnawing at her. Her money, her arrogance, her too-perfect success. "She's hiding something," Camilla muttered to herself one night. And she intended to find out what. Camilla reached out to an old colleague, Marcus Taylor, a real estate consultant she'd met at an environmental conference years earlier. "Marcus, quick question," she began when he answered. "Do you know anyone named Sierra Cole? Says she's an agent in Omaha." There was a pause. "That name rings a bell," Marcus said cautiously. "If it's the same Sierra, she's under investigation for property fraud. Fake appraisals, forged paperwork, the works. Stay away from her." Camilla's breath caught. "You're sure?" "As sure as it gets," he said. "She's slick, but she leaves a trail." When the call ended, Camilla sat in silence, the pieces falling into place. Sierra wasn't just manipulative, she was dangerous. Camilla called her father immediately. "Dad, you need to hear this," she said, explaining what Marcus had told her. Richard cut her off mid-sentence. "Don't stick your nose in their business," he snapped. "They're doing fine." She pressed harder. "Her firm's under investigation, Dad. She's using your house." "Enough," he barked. "Focus on your own life, Camilla." The line went dead. She stared at the phone in disbelief. He didn't want to hear it. He never did. She tried her mother next, voice trembling. "Mom, please listen. Sierra's involved in something shady." Evelyn sighed softly. "Let it go, honey. They're happy." Camilla felt her heart drop. "Happy," she whispered. "When it all falls apart, don't say I didn't warn you." That night, Camilla couldn't sleep. She sat at her desk, scrolling through property databases, tracing Sierra's firm. Dozens of listings appeared, each more suspicious than the last. Inflated prices, fake owners, quick flips. She jotted notes, cross-checking every address. The next day Marcus called again. "You were right to worry," he said grimly. "One of the mortgages Sierra signed includes your parents' address. She co-signed it under a shell company. If the deal defaults, they could lose the house." Camilla's stomach turned. "Send me everything," she said. He did. That evening, she printed the documents, spreading them across her kitchen table, her eyes scanning every signature. There it was, Sierra's name, right beside her father's. Camilla's hands trembled as she flipped through the papers. It was worse than she thought. A second mortgage had been taken out on her parents' home, one she hadn't known existed, tied directly to Sierra's fraudulent company. Thousands of dollars had already been withdrawn, with no record of repayment. "Oh my God," she whispered. The woman her father praised had turned their home into collateral for a scam. She grabbed her phone again, but this time she didn't call Richard. Instead she called Nia. "You were right," she said. "I can't save people who refuse to see the truth." Nia's voice was calm. "Then don't. Expose her instead." Camilla looked at the stack of papers before her and nodded. "That's exactly what I'll do." The next morning, Camilla drove to her parents' neighborhood. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles whitened. She wasn't there for reconciliation. She was there for answers. Malik was outside unloading groceries from his shiny SUV, humming like a man who'd never faced consequences. "We need to talk," Camilla said, stepping out of her car. Malik's smile vanished. "About what?" he asked, suspicion rising. She held up her phone, the documents glowing on the screen. "About your wife's company. About the mortgage she took out in Dad's name." Malik snatched the phone, scanning the file. His eyes narrowed. "You're making this up," he said, tossing it back. "You've always hated her success." Camilla folded her arms. "This isn't jealousy, Malik. It's theft. She's using you and this house to fund her scams." He laughed, a hollow, angry sound. "You really think you're smarter than everyone, huh? Sierra's closing real deals while you hide behind spreadsheets." She stepped closer, her voice low and steady. "I'm warning you, if she goes down, you'll go down with her." He turned toward the door. "I don't have time for your paranoia." The door slammed in her face. For a long moment, Camilla stood on the porch, the weight of helplessness pressing down. Then she squared her shoulders. "Fine," she whispered. "If they won't listen, I'll make them see." She went around the side of the house where Evelyn was tending her flowers. "Mom," Camilla said softly. Her mother flinched at the sound of her voice. "I'm begging you. Check what Sierra's doing with your finances. She forged documents, took a second loan on this house." Evelyn's hands froze on the garden shears. "That can't be true," she murmured. "Richard signed everything himself." "Because she tricked him," Camilla snapped. "She's been doing this for years." Evelyn shook her head. Her voice trembling. "Don't start trouble, Camilla. Your father won't believe you." Camilla stepped back, heart pounding. "Then believe me yourself, Mom." Before it's too late that night, back in her apartment, Camilla called Marcus again. "Hazel Price," he said over the phone, "might know something. She used to work with Sierra's old firm in Lincoln." Camilla tracked Hazel down through LinkedIn and arranged to meet her at a small coffee shop downtown. Hazel, a silver-haired woman with sharp eyes, recognized the name instantly. "Sierra Cole," she said, shaking her head. "She worked for us years ago. Smart girl but greedy. She forged client signatures and funneled commissions to her own account. When the lawsuits started, she vanished." Camilla leaned forward. "And she's back in Omaha using my family." Hazel sighed. "Then I'd say she's repeating history." Camilla left the cafe with her heart racing. Everything Hazel said confirmed her fears. Sierra wasn't just a fraud, she was a predator. Camilla drove straight to her parents' house again, anger pulsing in her veins. Malik was in the driveway, scrolling through his phone. "We need to talk now," she said, holding up the printed email from Hazel and the mortgage papers. Malik frowned. "You don't quit, do you?" "Not when it's about the truth," she shot back. "Sierra scammed families in Lincoln. She's doing it again, and she used Dad's name." Malik's jaw tightened. "Stop lying," he shouted. "You think you're protecting us, but you're just jealous she made something of herself." Inside, Evelyn stood frozen in the hallway as the argument grew louder. "Mom, tell him," Camilla cried. "Tell him to check the papers." Malik's voice broke into a furious laugh. "You've lost it, Camilla. Maybe you should leave again before you embarrass yourself." Before she could answer, Richard stepped out of the study, face stern. "What's going on here?" Camilla turned to him, holding up the documents. "Dad, Sierra's company took out a fake loan in your name. Please just look." He snatched the papers, flipping through them. "Where did you get this?" "From a real estate consultant," she said. He traced the loan back to her firm. His eyes flicked over the signatures. His own beside Sierra's. He paled. Before Richard could respond, headlights flashed through the window. A black sedan pulled up to the curb. Two people in dark jackets stepped out, badges glinting under the porch light. "Mr. Lawson," one investigator called. "We're with the State Financial Crimes Division. We need to speak with Sierra Cole. Malik's face went white. What's going on? The investigator handed Richard a folder. Your address is listed in multiple fraudulent property transactions. We're here to confirm signatures and recover documentation. Evelyn gasped. Malik turned to his father. She said those papers were temporary. The investigator's expression didn't change. She's under federal review. The room erupted into chaos. Malik paced, running his hands through his hair. She's lying, Mom. Tell me she's lying, he shouted, voice cracking. Evelyn stood still, her eyes wide with disbelief. Richard's hands trembled as he flipped through the folder. Mortgage statements, transfers, even fake appraisals tied to their home. Dear God, he whispered. What has she done? Camilla said nothing. The truth had spoken for her. Moments later, Sierra's SUV appeared at the end of the street. She slowed as she spotted the investigators, her face turning pale before she slammed the brakes. There she is, one of them said. Miss Cole, we need a word. Sierra stepped out, adjusting her sunglasses like she could still control the narrative. Is there a problem? She asked, her tone smooth but sharp. Camilla crossed her arms. The problem, she said coldly, is that you used my family to fund your schemes. Sierra's smirk faltered. Watch your words, sweetheart. Camilla pulled out her phone, the recorder app running. You took out loans in my father's name, drained their savings and forged signatures. Say it. Sierra's eyes darted to the investigators, then back at Camilla. Fine, she hissed. I took the money. Your father signed off. He wanted in on a deal. Don't act like a saint. The investigators froze, their cameras rolling. Camilla's heart hammered, but she didn't look away. You manipulated them, she said quietly. You used them because you knew they'd trust you. Sierra gave a bitter laugh. They trusted me because I gave them hope. That's not my fault. She turned, trying to walk back to her car, but one investigator blocked her path. Miss Cole, you'll need to come with us. Sierra's mask cracked. You can't arrest me, she snapped, her voice shaking. The investigator replied calmly. You're not under arrest yet, but you're not going anywhere. Camilla exhaled, watching the woman who had destroyed her family's peace finally lose control. For the first time in years, she felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. As the investigators escorted Sierra toward their car, Malik lunged forward. Wait. You can't take her, he shouted, grabbing one of their arms. She didn't do anything wrong. One investigator turned sharply. Sir, step back. Sierra's voice rose, desperate now. Malik, don't let them take me. I can fix this. Her words cracked, no longer polished or confident. But Malik froze when he saw the cold certainty in her eyes. There was no fixing this. Camilla stood on the porch, arms folded, watching the illusion crumble. For years, her family had treated Sierra like gold and her like glass. Now they were finally seeing the truth. When the investigators left, the silence was unbearable. Richard sank onto the sofa, the folder of documents still in his hands. Evelyn sat beside him, trembling. Malik paced like a caged animal. How could she do this? He muttered, running both hands through his hair. Then, turning to Camilla, his voice hardened. You knew. You knew something was off and didn't stop it. Camilla stared at him, stunned. I tried, Malik, she said. You called me jealous. You laughed in my face. You should have tried harder, he snapped. Richard slammed his fist on the coffee table. Enough. This isn't helping. But his voice broke, heavy with shame. Camilla looked around the room, the furniture she'd bought, the walls she'd painted, the lights she'd paid to keep on. Everything that symbolized her sacrifices was now evidence of their downfall. Evelyn's voice trembled. Camilla, what happens now? Camilla exhaled slowly. The investigators will build their case. The bank might call in the loan. The house could be at risk. Malik shook his head in disbelief. We can fix this, he said, though his tone lacked conviction. Richard rubbed his temples. God help us, he whispered. But even now, none of them said thank you. None of them apologized. It was always Camilla's job to clean up the wreckage. That night, her phone buzzed again. It was Richard. His voice was raw. Camilla, we're in trouble, he said. The bank's calling in the loan. We might lose the house. Can you come back? We need you. She sat at her kitchen table, staring at the city lights outside her window. No, Dad, she said quietly. I warned you. You chose to ignore me. I gave everything for that house. Every paycheck, every hour of rest I lost. I'm done. He hesitated, his breathing uneven. Please, baby, we didn't know. She hung up before he could finish. For the first time, she felt something close to peace the next morning. Camilla listened to the recording of Sierra's confession again. Her voice was sharp, cold, unrepentant. I took the money. They trusted me. Camilla saved the file and forwarded it to the investigators. They replied within minutes, thanking her for the evidence. She sat back in her chair, exhaling deeply. Her phone buzzed again, this time a text from Malik. You ruined everything. She didn't respond. Instead, she muted the thread, deleted his contact, and turned her attention back to work. For once, her life didn't revolve around their chaos. For once, she could just exist without owing anyone anything. Later that week, curiosity got the best of her. Camilla drove back to the neighborhood, parking across the street from her parents' home. The porch lights were still on, though it was midday. Papers were scattered across the front table inside. Bank letters, foreclosure warnings, envelopes marked urgent. Richard sat motionless in his chair. His shoulders slumped. Evelyn wiped tears from her cheeks with a trembling hand. Malik sat on the floor, his head buried in his arms. Camilla's chest tightened. This was the family she had tried to save, the family that had thrown her out. She wanted to feel pity, but all she felt was exhaustion. She stepped inside quietly. Richard looked up, his eyes hollow. Camilla, he said, his voice a whisper. We don't know what to do. The bank says we have weeks before foreclosure. Can you help us, just this once? Camilla studied him for a long moment. You told me I wasn't essential, she said softly. You pushed me out so Malik could move in. And now you want me to fix this. Malik stood, his face streaked with frustration. We're family, he said. You can't just walk away. She met his eyes coldly. Family doesn't treat you like a burden until they need your wallet. Evelyn reached for her daughter's hand, tears glistening. Camilla, please. We made mistakes, but this house, it's all we have. Camilla hesitated, torn between compassion and the ache of betrayal. You didn't listen, Mom, she said quietly. You watched them push me out and said nothing. You chose silence when I needed you most. Evelyn's lips trembled. I was scared, she whispered. Your father, your brother. They always spoke louder. Camilla gently pulled her hand away. And I always paid the price, she said. But not anymore. She walked through the house one last time. The gleaming refrigerator she'd bought, the new windows she'd paid for, the walls she'd painted herself. Every corner echoed with memories of sacrifice. The foreclosure papers on the table were like tombstones of trust. You did this to yourselves, she murmured. Malik followed her to the door. Camilla, please, he said weakly. We're broke. We have nowhere else to go. She turned, eyes calm but resolute. I warned you about her. I tried to save you. But you made your choice. Now live with it. Outside, the air was crisp, the sky painted in soft orange streaks of dusk. Camilla stood on the porch, breathing in deeply. 4 years, that house had been a weight on her shoulders, a monument to her family's dependence. Now, watching it fall apart, she didn't feel guilt. She felt release. She got into her car and started the engine, her reflection flickering in the rearview mirror. You did what you had to do, she whispered to herself. As she drove away, the house grew smaller, until it was nothing more than a shadow in the fading light, a reminder of the price of misplaced loyalty. Weeks passed. The calls from her family slowed, then stopped entirely. Camilla poured her energy into work. Long days on site supervising environmental projects, late nights drafting proposals that carried her name at the top. Her dedication caught the attention of her department head, who called her into his office one afternoon. "Camilla," he said with a proud smile, "the board reviewed your designs for the river restoration project. We're promoting you to lead environmental engineer." For a moment she was speechless. "Thank you," she finally said, her voice steady but full of emotion. As she left the office, a smile crept onto her face. This promotion was hers alone. Earned, not handed down, not borrowed, not owed. That evening, Nia came over with takeout and a bottle of red wine. "To freedom and promotions," she toasted, raising her glass. Camilla laughed, clinking hers. "You have no idea how good it feels to work for something that's really mine." They spent hours talking and laughing, their conversation shifting from work to life to healing. "You've carried people for too long," Nia said gently. "Now it's time to carry yourself." Camilla nodded. "It's strange," she said. "I used to think letting go meant losing everything. But now it feels like I finally got my life back." Nia smiled knowingly. Sometimes walking away is the only way to win. 6 months later, Camilla's apartment had transformed. Sunlight poured through sheer curtains, illuminating the plants she'd finally had time to care for. Her once empty shelves were filled with books, photos, and small pieces of art she'd bought for herself. Her laughter returned, soft, unforced, real. One afternoon, while reviewing a set of blueprints at her desk, she received an email from the investigators. "Case closed. Cole Real Estate Group. Conviction finalized." Camilla exhaled in relief. Sierra had been sentenced to 3 years in federal prison for fraud and identity theft. Justice at last had been served. Later that day, Camilla met Nia for lunch at a small downtown cafe. "You heard?" Nia asked, sliding into the booth. Camilla nodded. "Yeah, 3 years. It won't bring back what was lost, but it's something." Nia stirred her tea thoughtfully. "And your family?" Camilla hesitated. "They lost the house. The bank foreclosed after they missed too many payments. They're renting a small apartment in the suburbs now." Nia's expression softened. "Do you talk to them?" "No," Camilla said quietly. "Not yet. I think they need to understand the cost of what they did. To themselves and to me." That night, alone in her apartment, Camilla found herself scrolling through old photos on her phone. Family dinners, birthdays, Christmas mornings. Her father's booming laugh, her mother's gentle smile, Malik's teasing grin. So much history, yet so much hurt. She stared at one photo, a snapshot of her standing beside the refrigerator she'd bought for them. Everyone had been smiling then. "Funny," she murmured, "how love can look like loyalty until it becomes sacrifice." She closed the gallery and placed the phone face down. Some memories, she realized, weren't meant to be revisited, only learned from. A week later, an envelope arrived in her mailbox. The handwriting was familiar, her mother's. For a long time, Camilla just stared at it, debating whether to open it. Finally, she tore it open. Inside was a single handwritten letter. "My dear Camilla, I'm sorry. You were right about everything. We should have listened. Losing the house was painful, but losing you hurt most of all. I hope one day you can forgive us. Love, Mom." Camilla folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer. Forgiveness, she thought, was a bridge she wasn't ready to cross, but at least now the apology existed. Days turned into weeks again, and Camilla found herself smiling more often. She joined Nia's yoga class regularly, her body stronger, her mind quieter. On weekends, she volunteered with a local clean water initiative, teaching high school students about environmental sustainability. They looked up to her with admiration. "How did you get into this field?" one girl asked after class. Camilla smiled. "By believing I could make a difference, and by refusing to let anyone tell me I couldn't." As she spoke, she realized she wasn't just rebuilding her career. She was rebuilding her purpose sometimes, though the past still whispered she'd see a family. In the park, parents and grown children laughing together, and a pang of sadness would tug at her chest. But she reminded herself that healing didn't mean erasing the pain. It meant learning to live beyond it. One evening, while walking home under the city lights, her phone buzzed. A text from Malik appeared. "I'm sorry. You were right. About everything." Camilla read it, her steps slowing. She didn't reply. Instead, she tucked the phone into her pocket and kept walking, her heart light but firm. Some closures, she realized, didn't need words. Her work flourished. The city council recognized her for her contribution to Omaha's flood prevention plan. Photos of her team appeared in the local paper. Her supervisor called her a quiet force with a vision for change. When Nia showed her the article, Camilla laughed. "A quiet force, huh?" Nia grinned. "That's just code for unstoppable." They celebrated with dinner, music, and laughter, the kind that comes from knowing you've earned your peace. Camilla wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving, grounded in her independence, certain of her worth. One Sunday morning, sunlight streamed across Camilla's kitchen counter as she brewed coffee in the same machine she once took from her parents' house. She leaned against the counter, gazing out the window at the city waking up. Her phone buzzed. A notification from her channel where she'd begun sharing life lessons through storytelling. Her latest post read, "Family isn't just who you're born to, it's who stands beside you when the world falls apart." Comments flooded in from people who related to her story. Smiling softly, she whispered, "If you're watching this, tell me where you're from. I want to know how far my story's reached." Her pain had become her purpose. Months later, Camilla stood before a crowd at a local conference for women in STEM, the stage lights glinting softly against her name tag. Camilla Lawson, lead environmental engineer, Omaha City Project. She took a breath and smiled. "When I was younger," she began, "I thought strength meant fixing everything, every problem, every person. But sometimes, real strength means stepping away and letting people face what they've created." The audience listened intently. "We can't pour from an empty cup," she continued. "We can't build futures if we're stuck repairing the past." When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Camilla's eyes glistened, but this time her tears were of pride. After the event, a young woman approached her. "Ms. Lawson, your story really hit me," she said, her voice trembling. "My family keeps depending on me for everything, and I'm so tired. How do you stop feeling guilty?" Camilla smiled gently. "You don't stop feeling it right away," she said. "You learn to live with it until one day it stops weighing you down. You set boundaries, and the right people learn to respect them." The girl nodded, eyes filling with relief. "Thank you," she whispered. Watching her walk away, Camilla realized she'd become the kind of person she once needed. Steady, grounded, unafraid to let go. That evening, Camilla and Nia sat by the riverfront, the water glowing orange under the setting sun. "You ever think about going back?" Nia asked quietly. Camilla sipped her coffee. "Back where?" "To them," Nia said. "Your family." Camilla was silent for a long moment, watching the current move downstream. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But not to fix things, just to see if they've learned." Nia smiled softly. "And if they haven't?" Camilla turned toward her friend, her eyes calm. "Then I'll keep moving forward. Some bridges don't need rebuilding, they just need to stay burned." One chilly afternoon, months later, Camilla received another envelope, this time from a law office. Inside was a letter stating that the house she'd once helped maintain had been sold at auction. The funds barely covered the debts left behind. Attached was a note from her father. "We're starting over. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope we can earn your respect again someday." Camilla traced the handwriting with her thumb, her chest tightening. "Maybe someday," she murmured. She folded the letter carefully, not out of anger but closure. The past had finally signed its own ending. Her new apartment overlooked the skyline, a view she'd chosen intentionally, a daily reminder that she'd built her world from the ground up. She spent her mornings meditating, her days designing, and her nights writing stories inspired by her journey. One post she shared went viral overnight. It read, "The ones who doubted you will watch you rise, but you won't rise for revenge. You'll rise because peace looks better on you than pain ever did." Thousands of women commented, sharing their own stories of breaking free from guilt and finding independence. Camilla read each one, her heart swelling with empathy. On weekends, she and Nia volunteered at youth mentorship programs, guiding girls toward engineering and architecture. "I wish I'd had someone like you growing up," one student told her shyly. Camilla smiled. "You do now," she said. The words lingered between them like sunlight through glass. Later, as the students left, Nia turned to her. "You realize you're changing lives, right?" Camilla laughed softly. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe I'm just helping them avoid the mistakes I made, giving too much too soon to people who didn't deserve it." One evening, as rain tapped against her window, Camilla lit a candle and opened her journal. The pages were filled with reflections, small victories, lessons learned, memories both painful and sweet. She wrote, "I thought my story ended when I left that house, but really that's where it began. I lost a family I couldn't save, but found the woman I was meant to be." She paused, reading the line twice. Felt final, whole. She smiled and closed the book, letting the candlelight dance across her peaceful expression. Spring came early that year. The city bloomed with color, and Camilla's life mirrored it. Vibrant, full of quiet joy. She hosted her first online storytelling session, sharing her journey with thousands who tuned in from around the world. "If you've ever been told you're too much, too loyal, or too emotional," she said into the camera, "remember, your kindness is not a weakness. It just deserves to be placed where it's valued." The comments flooded in with gratitude, people writing from Lagos, Atlanta, London, and Cape Town. Her story had traveled farther than she ever imagined. Later that night, Camilla sat by her window, gazing out at the shimmering city lights. Somewhere in that same city, her parents and brother were living quieter lives. Maybe they thought of her sometimes. Maybe they didn't. But she no longer needed their acknowledgement. Her peace no longer depended on their understanding. "I hope they're okay," she whispered softly. Not out of resentment but forgiveness. The kind of forgiveness that didn't mean reconciliation, only release. It was the final act of healing on a golden evening nearly a year after her family's collapse. Camilla walked to the riverfront again, wind brushing her face as the sun dipped low. Children laughed nearby, the water glimmered, and the air smelled of renewal. She smiled, remembering who she used to be, the daughter who gave everything, and who she was now, the woman who learned to give to herself. Pulling out her phone, she started a live video. "If you're watching this," she said with a gentle smile, "tell me where you're listening from. I want to know how far my story has